Hey, and welcome back to the Fully Booked Photographer podcast. And this week, we're talking about the performance mindset. Jonathan.
Hello, Ronan. So I believe that this week, we were told that Ronan doesn't talk enough. So let's get Ronan talking more. So I'm going to host a conversation this week and I'm going to ask many, many questions. And hopefully Ronan and along with Brad and Janine have many, many answers to those questions.
Indeed, and after this episode, everyone's going to know why Ronan doesn't talk so much. So, this is your one episode, Ronan. Make it count, my friend.
I don't know whether that's an insult at Ronan or me or both. It's like a dual insult.
You see, I do talk a lot. Here's the thing, right? And people say to me, Ronan, you talk a lot. Like when I'm at meetings of people say, you talk a lot. But I don't actually talk a lot. I listen a lot. But when I do talk, it's vital to listen.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, let's get started. So today we want to talk a little bit about the high performance mindset and what that even means. So we all know that in any business, mindset is crucial. You know, if you don't have the right mindset, you shouldn't be in business. You should get a job. And we see it all the time in that, you know, there's so much negativity when things don't go right. And that's the worst possible thing that can happen. And, you know, we see it with ourselves sometimes. We see it with, you know, the members sometimes where if something hasn't performed, you know, they'll react negatively to it or not have the correct mindset. But Ronan, sometimes it starts with what you're, you know, grateful for currently having and what you're, you know, actually focusing on, because you've been talking to everyone about a great book you're reading at the moment that kind of helps to shift our mindset, first of all, into what we focus on. Just talk to us a little bit about your current experiences of, you know, shifting your mindset.
Oh gosh, Jonathan, that's a big, long question. You really do want me to talk a lot, don't you? I suppose this doesn't come just from one book. It comes from many books, and there's many, 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 many great books on helping you to have the right positive mindset. And all of those books talk about this, you know, and it starts with, do you want to be a victim? Or do you want to be a player? Or like we prefer to call a player a difference maker. Like, what do you want? Because if you want to if you want to be a victim and don't take personal responsibility for your life, well then, you know, I don't want to know you. Sorry, I don't want to know you, because if you surround yourself with victims, right, you become a victim yourself, because you are the end result of your environment, and part of your environment is the people you spend time with. That's why I love all you guys, right? Because you're all positive. When something goes wrong, you say, with a positive mindset, you know, what did we learn from that? What did we learn from that? So what was the gain? So the gain was you learned something, right? So that you can adapt and adapt what you're doing to do it differently the next time. So hopefully the next time you achieve the result you want. And it's a delicate balance, Jonathan, because we all hear about, you know, you have to set your goals and they have to be smart and they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. That's all good, but that can also cause you to focus on, well, I've set the goal now, right? But I'm not getting there very fast. So a great example, because if you're like me, you've been here many times. So let's just talk about weight loss, right? So if you think about a weight loss goal and you set a goal for, I want to lose 40 pounds, let's just say that's it, right? And if you go about then trying to achieve that goal, so it's measurable, and I want to lose 40 pounds in the next 12 months. So now it's time bound, right? Is it realistic? Yeah, it's possible to lose 40 pounds in 12 months. Is it achievable? It is, if I do the right things to help me along the way. And is it specific? It's around weight loss, right? So I want to lose weight to be healthier. So if you imagine then that you start on that journey, and after the first week, you've lost half a pound, but you've been eating all the right things and you've been doing your exercise and all that, right? And you say, oh my gosh, I still have 39 and a half pounds to go, right? How does that make you feel? It deflates you, right? Right? And you start to say, well, how is it just about me? Like I'm now walking an hour every day, which I didn't do before. I'm now eating 4 salads a week instead of never eating salads before. Like, what's going on, But instead, if you say, wow, look, I lost half a pound this week. Amazing, right? What's the difference in that, right? So one is a player mindset, or a difference maker mindset, and the other is a victim mindset, right? So the victim mindset puts you into a spiral of negativity where you're going to give up. How do I know this? Because I've been there, right? So rather than when you stand on the scales, right, if you're measuring your weight loss, rather than standing on the scales and saying, oh my gosh, I still have 39 and a half pounds to go, you go, yes, I'm half a pound down this week. Let's do it. Let's keep going. And that idea, has been in psychology and most of the books for many, many times, but it sort of came to me recently. You mentioned a recent book, and I think I've shared this week on social media with people, called The Gap and the Gain, right? And amazing book. And one of the principles they talk about measuring success is to measure backwards. So measure from where you started and where you are now rather than what's left on your journey.
And that's a really interesting concept, Ronan, because like you said, and it's aptly named with the gap and the gain, because sometimes if you focus on the gap, you're focusing on what you don't currently have, which is going to put you in that mindset of, and that state of being that I don't have what I want. So you're focused on not having something rather than having it. So it's just an interesting flip in your psychology. Instead of focusing on instead of focusing on not having what you want, you're focusing on celebrating what you've gained. So it makes you feel better, and it focuses you more on, continuing to take those steps required to get to your goal, because you know that if you continue doing it, you'll continue gaining. I may not have described that very well, but it's the same with weight loss. It's the same with even generating leads and bookings. If you've never launched a Facebook campaign before and you do the Fully Booked Challenge and you launch your first campaign, that's a gain. You've never done it before. You're on the right track. That's the first step. You then generate your first lead, and instead of focusing on, I need to have 20 leads to get my 8 bookings, focus on the fact that you've gained 1 lead. You're doing the right things and celebrating that. So it's an interesting flip in mindset. So how has that helped you to, what difference do you feel having started that process of shifting to celebrating the small wins, if you want to call that, or the gain, versus focusing on where you want to be and not having it?
It takes the pressure off. So it gets you to celebrate success every day, even if it doesn't work out like you wanted to. So let me give you an example. Let me give you a member's example. I'll give you 2 member examples. I'll start with this one. So we often see our members say, I ran this campaign on Facebook and it didn't work, and I haven't got my leads, and therefore I've no bookings. And rather than looking at it, right, so I ran the campaign, right? And it didn't deliver what I wanted to the results I wanted from it. So what's the gain from that? So the gain from that is I've ran it, I've learned what doesn't work, and now I know what I'm going to tweak so that the next time I run it, it works. So the gain was in the learning of what didn't work, rather than the gap in I don't have the leads yet. And so that's one example. Another example is if you measure backwards. So let's do the measure backwards thing again. So Darren and Rianne, I'm sure they won't mind us mentioning them. So they have this target to be fully booked, right? And they know that their target each month is that they want to have 12 bookings for their boudoir and 12 bookings for their newborn, right? And we've talked before about eating an elephant. You know, if I put an elephant in front of you, and let's say we eat elephants, just for this story, you know, if you've to try and think about eating the whole elephant and how am I going to eat this whole elephant, right? It's off-putting. You go, why start? Wow, this is impossible. Like, there's no way I'm going to eat an elephant. But if you eat the elephant one piece at a time, right? So start with the little toe on the left foot, right? And eat that today. And then tomorrow eat the next one. Eventually you'll have the elephant eaten. And Darren and Rianne started to do this recently. So rather than thinking about the 12 bookings they need, let's break that down into one booking a day. So my focus now is, Rianne's focus now is, because she does all the phone work, is every day I have to get one booking. And every day, and she's not allowed to go to bed until she gets that one booking, right? That's just a joke. But every day she gets that one booking, right? It's breaking that elephant down into smaller pieces, but she can celebrate each day. So when Rianne goes to bed, right, on every night, and she's had that one booking, it makes her feel really, really, really good, right? And the next morning she wakes up, and what's her goal for today? What's the win for today? One booking. So what happens if she has a day that she doesn't have a booking? Well, she hasn't had that yet since she started to do that, which is one lesson. But let's say she did, right? She can then go down and she can say to herself, right, I didn't get the booking today, but because I've had all the other bookings, there's no pressure, right? So why do I believe I didn't have the one booking today? And what did I learn? What did I learn from what I did today that didn't result in a booking? That's the mindset of a player. That's the mindset of a difference maker rather than the mindset of a victim.
Janine, I think you have something similar going on with your team, right? Because you spoke before about when you have certain targets for bookings and sales. You know, you have fun days to celebrate wins. Am I right, or did I get that wrong? Or
No, you're right. We do when we track our goals monthly in general, right? For our general types of sessions that we have, families, children, birthdays, things like that. But when we're running specific promotions and events, like for Christmas or for our Christmas themes, our duck themes, right now we're doing a Think Pink theme in celebration of a movie coming out this summer. We have specific goals for that. And when we reach them, we do a celebration. And so we celebrate the achievement of our goal. And I know what you're going to ask next is what if we don't meet that goal, right? Right. So it's funny though, when you focus on the achievement of it, you very rarely miss it. You find other ways. And that's where it's Edison, right? I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 things that didn't work, right? Before he got the light bulb. And so that's always been one of my favorite quotes. And, you know, when we first ran our Think Pink ad, it got somewhat okay results. We booked a few sessions and I turned it off. And I remember actually talking to Jonathan. I'm like, maybe I don't know. So, you know, like we were kind of just talking about a couple of different things, tweaked it, ran it again. And it's been on fire. I mean, we've opened up 3 more days, right? And we didn't just say, I guess it's a bad idea. I failed at this concept. We're not going to do it. I guess I was wrong, or whatever the case may be. We just tweaked it, tried it again, and now we've had to open up more dates. And so it's just when you focus on what can be done and you have this goal that you've set, you find ways to make it happen, as opposed to accepting ways that it doesn't.
So I'm kind of seeing some trends here. I'm seeing, you know, mentions of the importance of responsibility, the importance of positivity, the importance of measurement. Because Brad, we see this all the time, where some of our members will launch a campaign and it doesn't perform well, or it doesn't work in their point of view. But I'm going to go down 2 routes. The first route I'm going to go, Brad, is if you launch a campaign, which you've done in the last couple of weeks, and it hasn't produced the results that you desired, what do you do about it? Do you start cursing at Facebook, saying F you Facebook, F you marketing, F you photography world, I'm done, I'm going to go on the dole, or go work for someone else? What do you do when something doesn't work?
I do exactly that, Jonathan. You know, I have an emotional meltdown.
I don't believe you.
No. Well, so the first point of view is I always say F you Facebook whenever Facebook doesn't let my ads run properly, because, you know, that's just a little monkey I've got on my shoulder that I need to let my emotions out. But then I always do something about it. I always take logical action and change the ad and make it better and retry and do it again. You know, it's as much as I like to think that I'm a robot. You know, I'm a Klingon from Star Trek. Ultimately, I'm not, and I have to let myself have little wobbles every now and again. But it's more about getting back on the bike and then fixing it straight after.
Hold on, Brad. Klingons are very emotional.
No. Klingons. No, that's what Spock is, isn't it?
No,
no, he's a Vulcan. Oh,
Vulcan.
Sorry, Trekkies. I'm sorry, Vulcan. Oh, I'm sorry, Trekkies. Oh,
Kick him off the podcast. Out.
that's me done. The Trekkies have got my name now. Oh, you can tell I like Star Wars more. But the point's the same. Is you know, business is hard. You're going to be emotional about it, and you're allowed to feel. I was going to swear then. You're allowed to feel bad at times. But what you're supposed to do is pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and move forward, because that's the only option you have. You know, because if you freak out too much, then you're just going to go into that victim spiral, and you're never going to get anything done. You have to take responsibility. You have to move forward. But you know, you don't have to be a Vulcan about it. There you go.
And Jonathan, one thing that I see that it took me a long time to discover this, and I do this every morning now after I meditate, is I'm grateful for what I have. I look around and say, oh my gosh, look at the amazing family I have. Look at the amazing wife who's put up with me for 30 plus years. Like, look at the business we have. Look at the people I get to work with. Look at doing what I love, helping people, you know, create better businesses for themselves and therefore better lives. Like, I couldn't be happier. Like, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, you know. Because I'm just one of those people that don't see money as the definition of success. And yes, you know, we need to have the money to rear our family and educate our family the way we want and to do everything else, but it's not all about money. You know, and I think if you take a moment and be grateful for what you have and see what you have compared to, like, what percentage of the world would love to have what we all have, you know, that have food every day and clean water every day, even just that lower base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a large percentage of the world that doesn't have that, you know. So I think if you start with that, being grateful for what you have and having people that you love and doing a job, because I don't even call what I do a job. You know, people say to me, why do you work so hard, Ron? I said, I don't. Because I love it. It's not work, you know. So I think if you have that mindset of being grateful for what you have and then wanting to make a difference and be a player, and using what you do to do that when things do go wrong, it allows you to frame it in that mindset. Okay, so it didn't quite work out, but what have I learned from it? So that I can continue on doing what I love and making a difference to people and fixing that piece. Being grateful, I think it's critical.
Yeah, absolutely amazing point. So, I mean, in terms of high performance mindset, I want to link it a bit to something that kept coming up, which was measurement. And I want to link the idea of measurement to, you know, hitting targets and performance. So this is a common theme that we have seen all the time in our 3 years of, or whatever it's been now. I think we missed our anniversary again, did we? Maybe it's 3 years now since we started originally BSA and now the Fully Booked Photographer. So I guess we see it over and over where members will come to us and say, this isn't working. And it doesn't matter how successful of a business they have. Some have quite successful businesses with a number of employees. Some are solopreneurs. And when we ask them what's not working about it, they can't tell us because they're not measuring, one, what their targets are, and two, they're making kind of assumptions that it's not working or based on feelings or not based on data. And it's kind of like, you're telling me your ads aren't working or your marketing isn't working, but how can you know if you don't have measurements to judge that against? It's like, oh, I'm just spending too much on Facebook. But what do you mean? What's your cost per booking? What's your target cost per booking? How do they relate against each other? What's your booking rate? I feel like, my leads this time around aren't as high quality. Well, how many have you booked? What's your cost per booking? What's your booking rate? What's your sales from it? What's your ROI? And they can't tell us. And this is not one single person. This is like a lot of people. So talk to me about mindset with regards to measurement. Who wants to take it?
Well, I mean, I can make a point just on that. You get better with exposure. So we're heavily exposed to this because it's what we do day in, day out, what we've been doing for years, and now we're mentoring and teaching people to do it for the past 3 years. But the vast majority of people, this is an entirely new thing they're embarking on. Even though they might have been in business 10, 15 years, they've been firing from the hip and have never checked the numbers, never done profit first, never really wrote a spreadsheet out. So when you start measuring numbers are scary. As much as we try and make numbers fun, when you do numbers, you have to ultimately accept responsibility because they don't lie. You're kind of stuck with them. So it is a challenge because the more you do something, the more efficient you're going to be at it and the better you're going to be at it. But kind of starting afresh, it is scary, which I suppose is why we do this podcast and why we offer the training. So we can help people bridge those knowledge gaps or help them when they have fears they need to overcome. But if you're set on building a business and you're set on using that business, a photographic business, because it's what you love and you want to use it to support yourself and your family, then you're going to have to manage it. And you're going to have to create ways to manage it and move that forward. There's no other alternative.
And Jonathan, Brad is saying a very important word there, which is manage, right? And straight. To my mind came that Peter Drucker quote, right? But I've reframed it as a positive because we don't do negative, the Fully Booked Photographer. And that is, to manage it, you have to measure it. He said it a slightly different way, that you can't manage it unless you measure it. But this it's the same thing. To manage it, you have to measure it. And it's not possible to be a successful business owner, regardless of what your definition of success is, unless you measure stuff. You have to. It's just not possible. You cannot go on a gut feeling when it comes to this. You've got to know your vital numbers. People call them KPIs, key performance indicators, which is a fancy word for knowing what numbers do you need to measure to manage your business. That's all it is. It's a fancy word for that. And once you know what those numbers are and you measure them on a regular basis, well, then you can manage your business and you can learn what's working to do more of, and you can learn when something goes wrong as to why it went wrong, so that you can say, right, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to change it the next time, so the next time it's more likely to be successful. And it's as simple as that. You have to. You cannot run a business without that. It's like being lost at sea. It's foggy. There's no sun, so you can't follow it the direction. You know, are you better off with a compass, or are you better off with no compass at all? You're better off with a compass. And that's what measuring the vital numbers are about. It's your compass to that your business is taking the right direction, or it's veered slightly off course and you need to take some action to get it back on course. That's all it is.
So Janine, what approach do you take when, because I know you measure, I know you spoke earlier in this podcast, you were talking about, you know, when you first launched your Think Pink campaigns that, you know, they weren't performing to expectations. So what did you base that on, and then how did you adapt? Like, what was your mindset in making it work? Like, what approach did you take mentally?
Well, it wasn't the measurement I took is that we needed to book 15 sessions on a day, right? And originally I just wanted to fill one day. And when I initially launched it, we were getting a slow amount of leads, like a couple a day, like 3 or 4, and we weren't booking them. And so the day wasn't filling. So I turned it off and I just sat and thought about it for a little bit. I'm like, I know this is a good idea. I just know it. And so then it's because sometimes, you know, you might have a bad idea. I mean, it has been known to happen. We all occasionally think something's going to be fantastic and it's not. So I sat and analyzed it first. I'm like, okay, is this a good idea? Are people really going to want these sessions? And then I thought to myself, I'm like, yes, I know this movie is going to be a huge hit this summer. The more marketing, and then that's when it clicked. I was like, I actually was too early. Well, I was ready for it and I had to shoot my samples early and things like that. And unlike fairies or wizards or Christmas, things that where people are used to seeing things from us about it, this was something tied to a movie release. And I realized I was too early. The marketing for the movie hadn't gotten out there yet. And so while people like me knew the movie was coming out in July, the rest of the world might not have, because they're not in touch with it as much as I was. I was too early. And that was the main thing I realized. And so I waited 2 weeks and started running the ad again. I did make a few tweaks in the ad copy. I made a few tweaks and I changed the image. And it's been on fire ever since. And we actually opened up more dates. I'm still not turning it off. And we, for the people we weren't able to get in touch with, we came up with a new, and this is where you can change a campaign on the fly too, right? Because now I've booked more dates and I'm like, okay, we need to shuffle stuff around. We're just going to do Think Pink sessions all summer. And so everybody that we lost that became a cold lead, we decided, well, why not try and get in touch with them again? We send them all another text saying, hey, we've opened up more dates. Are you still interested? And so we took the, are you still interested, changed it a little bit, said we fully booked out. Now we've opened more dates. It's more popular than we even realized. Are you still interested? So that's kind of how it was. I mean, so that's always my first, I always, start up and I'm like, who was it a good idea? If I think it was a good idea, then I will figure out what I could do to make it better and go from there.
So what I'm hearing is that kind of relates back to Ronan's story about the gap in the gain, because, he was focusing on, with that, you're focusing on the small achievements you've made. So even though you're not consciously doing that, subconsciously you kind of are, because you're focusing on, okay, I've launched this campaign, that's been great. I want to do this. And you're not reacting negatively to negative results. You're doing it automatically. It's kind of, you're unconsciously competent at it, in the sense that you automatically seem to be focusing on the gain in this and not the gap. So you know what you want to get to, you know what you want to do, and you're being resilient. You're taking action, you're measuring, and you're making decisions and taking responsibility for the outcomes by implementing. You're not sitting on your chair crying into your coffee about, well, maybe you did, but we can all release emotion sometimes. But once we release that emotion, we have to take action and take responsibility for it. That's key to the high performance mindset as well.
And Jonathan, Janine, if you listen closely to what she said, like she started with, what did I do wrong? That was the question she asked herself. What did I do wrong? And realized that maybe she was just a little bit early because the timing wasn't right, because people weren't yet focused on the big movie that's come out, that these team sessions reflect in some way. So that's vital, right? That you ask yourself, and that's that might sound negative, but it's actually positive because you're not being a victim, right? She didn't blame something else. She didn't blame anything else, which allowed her, because if you blame something else, it's a cop-out, isn't it? It's not taking personal responsibility for it, because you see it all the time, right? You see the victim mindset, right? You see it in the online forums. Oh, my clients just don't value the work that I do. And everyone comes in and says, yeah, they don't value mine either, which makes you feel good because you think it's not about you that's the problem, that it's the same for everybody, right? So you're looking for confirmation bias, is what the psychologists call it, you know. You're getting confirmation that your opinion is correct, that being a victim is okay. Well, guess what, guys? It's not. It's not okay. It's okay to be a victim, maybe, if you want to have a sad life and you want to be depressed and you want to be people that nobody wants to be around. You know, if that's your goal, then be a victim. Be a victim. But if you really want to be happy in life and create your definition of success, surround yourself with people who reframe the negative to a positive, you know, to people who truly want to make a difference in this life, right? And to people who you are, who you hang out with. That's why the four of us are who we are, you know. We hang out together, we're positive, we're go-getters, we're difference makers. We want to have a positive impact on people. That brings positivity to ourselves, brings positivity to our families. And as Simon Sinek said, the result is that the financial side looks after itself. You know, if you're positive, you make a difference to people, that'll all work out. Once, of course, you do know your numbers and you measure them. You know, you do have to do that.
All right, guys, what an amazing episode. So, for our listeners, if you are ready to adopt this high performance mindset, if you are ready to become a fully booked photographer and have that accountability and that, you know, start hanging out with the cool kids or the players or the difference makers, then click the button below this podcast episode or the link below. That will bring you to our free fully booked challenge, where in the free fully booked challenge, we're going to show you how to implement our marketing system to become a fully booked photographer. And of course, as always, if you like this episode, make sure to click the like button, subscribe, and share it with all of your photographer friends. Or indeed, Janine, I believe you've some friends who listen who aren't even in the photography industry. So if you have fellow business friends who might gain something from this, then feel free to share it as well. That's it for this episode. That's bye from me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for me.
See you later.